have been magnificent. I gotta tell you, I'm so excited. All right, so enough about that. Let's talk about this beautiful woman that is coming up. I met her really early when I was first visiting here, the center, and I was just like enthralled by this person. There is an energy and a light that shines forth from her that I see. It is just amazing. It is unique, it is brilliant, it shines in multiple different colors, and guess what? This is an aspect, literally like looking at a gem, a diamond, all those different facets. This is her personified. So I'm going to invite up what I call one of our beloved congregants. I call her friend, my beloved Shelly.
Hello. Okay, we'll get this working. Tell me when it starts working. I'm just going to ramble. Hello. Hello. Thank you for that lovely invitation. It's nice to be here. I'm here today to talk about my lessons and messages on the 500-mile Camino. I think most of you know, who know Glenn and I, that a year ago we embarked on a 500-mile journey across Spain on the Camino de Santiago. And many people in the congregation know of the trail. Many people here have walked it. And what's interesting is we were invited to a showing of a new documentary about the Camino last Tuesday. It was, I think, a one-night showing. And we go to dinner with our friend, and she brought friends, so we met 8 more pilgrims. We're called pilgrims when you walk the Camino. And they came. Raise your hands when my new Camino group. Thank you. And we all have experiences on the Camino that we can share. And thank you for allowing me to share my lessons and messages from the Camino. And for those of you, and by the way, Karen sat next to me in the theater. That was funny. Welcome back. So for those of you who are not aware or very familiar with the Camino de Santiago, I want to briefly explain it. It's a pilgrimage trail across Spain, and there are many trails to end up in the town of Santiago to visit the cathedral there that enshrines the remains of St. James. Now what's interesting, Bill, is St. James is the disciple or the saint of forgiveness. And the name of the trail is called The Way, but that's a nickname for the way of forgiveness. Many people for the past 1,100 years since his remains were enshrined have walked some sort of trail to the cathedral to give respect and ask forgiveness of St. James. And it's become quite famous. And many prisoner or felon could be forgiven of their wrongdoing if they walk the trail. Now, how do you trust a felon has walked it and said they did it, right? So they came up with a system called a passport. And a pilgrim can get this passport. It folds, and it's about the size of a passport, but it folds open. And every time they stay at an inn or eat somewhere along the way, they get a stamp, because every location, every church, cathedral, restaurant, inn has their own special stamp. So when they got to Santiago and go to the pilgrim office, which we did, you can show your passport, and what you get is a certificate that you were officially walking the pilgrim trail, walked at least 100 kilometers or 66 miles, and you also got our names put in the official pilgrim log. But that's gone on for hundreds and hundreds of years. So that's a brief overview. And Glenn and I became familiar with it in 2014 when an acquaintance said, here's this book you should read. You know, things come to all of us in special ways, and so I took the book. It was really interesting. I'd never heard of the Camino. This woman walked it, had an amazing spiritual awakening, and then Glenn read it, and we just kind of planted the seed in the back of our mind that that'd be interesting to walk someday. Well, fast forward to 2019, and a couple of my girlfriends just happened to mention that they're going to walk the Camino the next year. We said, we want to go. So we became a group, and we were going to start in April, 4/20 of 2020, we were going to start on the Camino. Guess what happened? COVID. Borders shut down. We went back to Reno middle of March with our backpacks ready to walk, thinking, well, maybe this COVID thing will blow over in a couple weeks. So guess what happens? We cancel our air flight. Beginning of April, we canceled our reservations. And a week later, I get a call from a hospital in Salt Lake City that my father's in the hospital and he needs help. So because I didn't go on the Camino, I was able to go to Salt Lake and spend a month with him to put his home in order, his health in order, and his finances in order, because they were all a mess. So one thing about the Camino is it gives you gifts before, during, and after. You just need to be open to what the gifts are. It also gives you messages. So today I want to talk about the messages I received on the Camino. So we ended up waiting till COVID was mostly over, and we started a year ago this month, April 23rd. We started in Saint-Jean, France. It's the southwest corner of France. And that's us. Even though it's a small picture, I wanted to show you up above it is an alcove with Mother Mary holding baby Jesus. Now, if you haven't been to Spain, that country is completely infused with their Catholic belief system. And there are statues, there are 40-foot altars in their cathedrals, there are paintings. It's just amazing how infused they are with their belief system. And I grew up out west, you know, that's just very foreign to me. So it was a neat experience to see that. But here are some key words that I want to talk through my talk today. Buen Camino, we know what that is. Camino angels, feathers, bell towers, and fake birds. How about that? So what's a typical day on the Camino? Walk, eat, sleep. Walk, eat, sleep. That's what it could be, to go 500 miles. But we decided that when we fast forward, and we're going to do it in 2022, we're going to take a little longer, shorten our walk days so that we could see the countryside and experience the cathedrals. So we did that. And we spent 6 weeks walking across Spain. And we went with some friends, but you know, we all walked at our own pace. And we started off through that little alcove that was like an entrance through Saint Jean to get onto the trail. And we walked the first 3 days through the Pyrenees Mountains. Pictures do no justice as to the true beauty of walking through the Pyrenees Mountains. And about the third day, when we were coming out of the mountains, I looked up, and there were about 100 griffin vultures swirling above the trail. It's kind of spooky because we're all walking, right? But they're beautiful, and I saw a flock of 20 more coming off from the side, and they joined them, and they're just swirling above us. I mean, how often do we just stand and watch that in our everyday life? Yeah, we're too busy going someplace. Well, not long after that, I'm walking, and I see a beautiful feather on the trail, and that was my vulture feather gift. So I started collecting and asking for feather gifts, and I would get them. So we're coming out of the Pyrenees Mountains, and we're getting into some beautiful countryside, and I hear this odd noise. It is cuckoo. And I swear the first thought is, someone playing a joke on me? And I look around, and there's no one, and I hear it again. And I realize it's a cuckoo bird. I never knew they were real. I mean, call me silly. I thought they were fake little birds in a cuckoo clock. We don't have them out west, where I grew up on the mainland. So I thought, wow, I've heard a cuckoo bird now. Well, wouldn't you know, I'd say 98% of the days I heard a cuckoo bird. And it was pretty cool. That became my favorite bird. And many people keep a journal, and I would write sometimes. So sometimes when I was alone, maybe Glenn would be a half a mile up or behind me, I would just record my journal on my phone. I have a recorder app. And one day I was walking, and I said, you know, I haven't heard a cuckoo bird today. All of a sudden, it cuckooed right on cue. I mean, it's just funny. So that's a little thing. But fast forward about a week and a half into the Camino, about 140 miles behind us, and my right shin starts hurting. Now, we have read so many books on how to prepare for the Camino, and all of them tell you how to avoid blisters. That's the big thing, blisters. You know what the 3 most important things you take on the Camino are? the right backpack, the right shoes, and the right socks. Double layering your socks so you don't have the friction, because the friction causes the blisters. Happy to say, we walked 500 miles and never had a blister. Woo! We paid attention, but I cannot recall one book talking about shin splints. So a week and a half in, I got shin splints on my right leg to the point that I had to stop walking. We did 7 miles one day, we had 7 more to go, and I stopped walking. It was so painful, and I called Glenn. He was up ahead of me. We went back, got someone to call us a cab, called me a cab. I had to get in a cab and ride a taxi to the next village where our reservation was because I couldn't walk. And I'll tell you, I got tears in my eyes as he continued walking and I waved because I wanted to walk every mile, and it was hard for me to admit I couldn't do it. So I rode a cab to the next place. That's my signal for Lucinda to change the screen. And there's my leg on ice. For 3 days, I had to put my leg on ice and massage it. You can get through with shin splints, but you have to rest. That's not easy for me to do. Well, fortunately, it was around a place that we were going to take an extra day. So I was 3.5 days like this, and I finally sat there in my quietness because Glenn was still walking with our group, and I decided to ask Spirit. Spirit, God, your guides, whatever you want to call it, I asked, what is going on? Why is this happening to me? Because I'm pretty healthy. This stuff doesn't happen to me. I wanted to know. And in the quietness, I got the message, slow down. I'm a fast walker, and when you walk fast, you pound, pound, pound. And I said, okay. So I rested up, and I started practicing a little bit. I had to take shorter steps, which means you walk softer, and I started walking the Camino again. And about 3 days into that, being very careful, Glenn and I came upon this beautiful little church at the end of a village. Now, most often you can go in the churches and get a stamp and just see how beautiful they are. And it was about 11:30 in the morning, and I was a little surprised because the door was open. Spaniards take siesta very seriously. Things are closed up from noon to 4, so we were so excited the door was open. So we walk in, and there was like a sister in there, but she was not in Catholic garb. She was probably a volunteer, and she was giving a blessing, a personal blessing to a pilgrim on his knees in front of her. And I just sat there and watched it, and he left, and then I walked up to her, and she's about the same size as me, so eye to eye, she asked in her broken English, what is your name? And I told her, Shelly. And she proceeded to give a beautiful prayer, looking at me straight in the eye, and 2 or 3 times said my name. And then when she was done, she reached over and got a St. Christopher necklace and put it around me. And as I started to walk out that church, I just knew I was going to walk that Camino. I knew I was going to finish it. That was my message. So slow down, enjoy the walk, and I got my blessing. I'm ready to go. And that was a St. Christopher. I still have it. And Glenn got a blessing, too. He got his St. Christopher. We continue walking, and I consider her a Camino angel. There are special people that we met along the way that I called angels. We were walking into a village one day, and at the outskirts of the village, we stopped because we had to see where we were at, see where our inn was. And as we're sitting there at the corner, a couple of pilgrims come up behind us, and in their broken English, they asked, did you lose something? And they pulled out Glenn's driver's license. They had picked it up 1.5 miles behind us. It's like, I said, thank you, you are Camino angels. And they just kind of looked at me funny, but again, just these people that really impacted our lives. And so that's another example. I'm still getting my cuckoo bird. I love that cuckoo bird. And we continue walking, and we come upon, the trail is going up the hillside a bit, and we see this little cottage further up, and I took a picture. It was so pretty. Well, as we walk up, an artist lives in there and has an artist gallery. And we walk in. I was ready to just keep walking, but Glenn wanted to walk in. I said, okay, we've got time. It was just the two of us. And this man was from England and proceeded to tell us how he, 7 years earlier, had reached a point where he was broken in his life. He was from England, and he decided to walk the Camino, and he found himself, and he found God on that Camino. And he came back and bought a decrepit old place, built it up, and he does his artwork. So listening to his story, another couple came in. So it's just the four of us, just very personal time. And I asked if he had a stamp, and he said, I can do one. I thought, oh, okay. And I gave him my passport. Well, he proceeded, as we were looking around, to paint a picture on my passport. And it's in the lower right. But my point is, you know, it could have been just a stamp, but he sat there and painted a picture. It took me a few minutes to realize what he was doing. And then before the four of us left, he gave us about a 4-minute beautiful prayer. And it's so sincere and authentic in his heart. So another Camino angel just giving us the blessing and knowing what we were going through is a beautiful, beautiful adventure. So I continued on. My shin splints were fine. And towards the end, I finally got my cuckoo bird feather. Because I was looking up what a bird looks like, and I saw the stripes, and I finally got my cuckoo bird feather. My collection was full, and I even collect feathers here. I left the Camino with 23 feathers, but this is my collection here. I just want to show them to you. And another Camino angel we found, one of the things I had to use and did use was KT tape. Have any of you heard of KT tape? Well, with my shin splints, I got the KT tape and put it on my shins. As I was coming out of our place that we stayed one night, we met a woman in the lobby. Her name is Nicole. Hi, Nicole. I think she's watching. In Australia. She asked me what was going on. She's a physical therapist from Australia, and she proceeded to tell me some stretching exercises and gave me some tips on how to put the tape on better. Another Camino angel. And all along the Camino, she was helping people with their aches and their pains, and we're still friends now on Facebook. So KT tape is like the new fashion chic of the Camino. Use it, highly recommend. And there was one other time, we had a guidebook that had the trail, but every once in a while there's an alternate trail. And those are often the trails that go more through the woods, and we would always take the alternate trail. Well, in the book it says, there is one area where pilgrims tend to get lost because the trail isn't marked too well. We found it, and we get up to this top of a mountain, big field, and the trail stops. And we're looking around, and there's tall grass in front of us. We have no idea where to go. Fortunately, two younger gals come up behind us. They're other pilgrims that are lost. There's always something nice there. You know, you don't feel so alone. So we're all looking, and I see an older gentleman off. What's he doing on the top of this mountain on a field? I have no idea, but he's over there. And so I walk up to him. He speaks no English, and I'm very broken Spanish. And I'm saying, a key, showing him the map, and I'm trying to tell him the name of a town, and he grabs a stick, and he's drawing a map on the ground, a key. And he's just pointing to the end of the field, and I'm thinking, it's all this tall. He just keeps pointing. So, okay, we don't want to go backwards, so we start trudging through this field, and about 400 feet up, down, I see the edge of a guardrail. Well, you know a guardrail's on a road, so I was like, yay! So he was another Camino angel. He never knew it, but he was a Camino angel. It was really cool. And we finally get to the end. You can show that last one. This is us in front of the cathedral. Made it. And it's a beautiful cathedral. We actually got to attend the Sunday service. They have a lot of services. But a couple times a week, they have a special service with an item called the Bodafumero, and I probably pronounced it wrong. It's a giant incense container, as tall as me. It's 115 pounds. It's large. and it gets pulled up 65 feet, and it's about 6 to 8 monks hold onto the cords to pull it up, and then they start to swing it after they've filled it with the burning incense. And it's quite a sight to see this device swinging, 50 to 70 feet each direction in the middle of the service. Well, the history of that, the pilgrims used to show up to the service so stinky that they use the incense to cover the smell. And it's become a tradition. And we were not walking 500 miles and missing that. So we got to attend, and I was very excited. Yeah, they didn't have showers and clean clothes and transport services and inns. So, it's the whole thing is full of tradition, right? And that was beautiful. So we go home, back to Reno. We arrived Reno June 10th. And I get out my little calendar, and I'm starting to pack in all my trips again, and blah, blah, and I just packed us up with 3 trips in July, and I'm camping with my daughter and the grandboys. I get a pinched nerve. So painful. I have never had a pinched nerve. I could hardly walk. I couldn't sleep. It was bad. So once again, I asked, what's going on? And guess what my message was? You got it. I didn't get it the first time. Boy, this was 5 to 6 weeks of rehab before I was back to somewhat normal. I had to slow down, cancel all the trips. I was like, okay, got my attention. But in September, I think I went on 5 trips. And guess what I came back from the last trip with? COVID. So, I keep getting that thump upside the head, but I'm finally getting it. And so my point in this is, when something happens and it doesn't seem normal to you, something's just not going as planned, ask. Because Spirit always wants to give you the answer. But equal to asking is we need to listen. We need to listen. Take off the blocks, get in a quiet place, ask what's going on, and listen for the answer. Because your guides and your God and your angels and your healers, they want to take care of you. They want to help you. Ask, and you'll get the message. And let me look through my notes real quick just to see if I missed anything. No, I don't think I did. But I appreciate the opportunity to share our beautiful story and my new Camino contingent here. I heard stories of what happened to them the other night, and oh my gosh, my story feels this small compared to some. But Bill, you need to talk to Charles afterwards, please, regarding stuff, okay? Thank you.